Welcome to Central Youth Network's monthly Spotlight webinar. This month, we'll be focusing on social media strategy. We know from the discussion in our last month's webinar how media-centric our society has become. If we want our ministries to thrive, we need to be prepared to put our best foot forward in reaching individuals via social media. I'm excited to welcome two friends from Orange today. Welcome Daniel and welcome Jackie. Daniel is going to share his expertise in developing and implementing a social media strategy. Don't forget to take note of any questions you may have during this presentation for our Q&A time at the end of this webinar. Jackie will also be available to answer questions at the end of our time as well. Before we get started, I want to share a few technical details with you. While this webinar is a one-way presentation, we want to encourage you to take advantage of the question and answer chat option. I invite you at this moment to introduce yourself and where you are from in the chat. We will have some Q&A moderators that will help answer questions in the chat, but we will also be answering questions live here as well. Lastly, if you're having any technical difficulties, we will have this video of this webinar available for you to view at a later time. All right, let's get started. Welcome, Daniel. Thanks so much for being here today.
And thanks for having me. And I am Daniel. I am an Orange specialist at Orange, just like Jackie. And I get the pleasure of, we kind of have some interesting sort of specialized areas in the OS world. So Jackie being TSA is one of those. And I get the pleasure of sort of being one of our product specialists. And I also help a lot with technology. And so I know that a lot of you are probably in the throes of ministry and probably very, very busy people. And so it's really important that we kind of figure out sort of the best ways to communicate with the folks that we are ministering to. And one of those ways is via social media, as we all know. We all know that we also have lots of other things on our plate, I'm pretty sure. Communication is not just one part, or is not the only part of your ministry. It's just one part of it. And I know that sometimes it can kind of feel overwhelming to look at all of the options that there are out there and all of the different ways that people communicate. Your parents and your volunteers are likely in very different spaces on the internet. And so sometimes it's difficult to figure out where are they the most active in those spaces and how am I supposed to reach them. And I'm sure that you probably didn't sign up for becoming like a digital strategist when you accepted this role in ministry. So my hope and my heart is just to provide some really kind of practical advice and some tips on kind of how to get started with social media strategy. We also have a very specific kind of template that we can pass along, that I will pass along, or have Jackie pass along at the end of the webinar. And then as you also know, within your Orange material, you have a fully stocked social media plan, which does give you posts and images that will help your parents specifically connect to the content that Orange is creating. So it really is done for you and completely, kind of just like plug and play. But again, it's important to not just have those posts, but it's important to have a strategy behind those posts. So that's kind of what we want to talk about today. When I was before I came to Orange, I was a children's pastor for 13 years, and so I kind of know very well how hard it can sometimes be to be engaging in all of these different ways, and including social media to our job description. I think one of the very first things that I want to maybe throw out there, just as a sort of blanket idea, just for a mindset, is that social media is called social for a reason. That social media is about giving and taking. It's a participatory engagement tool. Sometimes that one of the most frustrating things in kids ministry or in ministry when you're dealing with social media is, and I'm sure all of you guys have experienced this before, I've experienced this before, where you might be posting consistently to your social media pages, whether it's Facebook or Instagram. You might be posting consistently, but you don't feel like you're getting the level of engagement that you hope to. You might be posting every day. You might be trying to share like really creative things and fun things for your parents or your volunteers. And it doesn't seem like they're getting any likes or they're getting any traction. And that can be incredibly defeating or discouraging. And so what I mean by social media being social in that it's a give and take. It's a um, uh, you are putting stuff out there and then they're giving it back, and then it's like passing a ball back and forth. The reason why that mindset is important is because it's not enough to simply post and expect engagement. One of the ideas to really marinate is how can you intentionally create engagement with your social media posts. And so what I mean by that is when you post, it's about sharing the content to maybe a very specific group of people and asking them to engage with it. And the thing is that the more that engagement that your post gets, the more likely that it will be seen by a higher number of people. Okay. And so I think one of the most practical things that anyone in ministry can do is what I call having a social media street team. Okay. So we always talk about at Orange, we're all about partnerships, we're all about teamwork, we're all about, you know, um, kind of not doing things alone, doing things in community, knowing that we can do more together. And so I think it's one of the most practical things that you can do is create a team of people. It can be 3, it can be 5, but people who are tasked, they can be volunteers to engage with your social media. Um, I think that there are people in your ministries who what we would call early adopters. They're your biggest fans and they want to help you out in any way that they can. This is also a really good job for a college student or stay-at-home parents. If to be kind of a help on your social media platforms. And basically their job is anytime you post something to your social media, they engage with it, whether it's a like, whether it's a share, whether it's a comment. Um, Best if it's all 3, right? And the more that you have that, the more that you'll increase your visibility via your social media channels. Another really practical tip as well is to make sure that all of your posts are encouraging engagement. Okay, so first, creating a team of people who can help increase engagement, but then your posts themselves should inherently create engagement. And what I mean by that is, are you asking questions, right? With every post that you create, are you inspiring action? Are you asking your audience to interact with you? So whether it's just a question about the post or whether it's a, hey, what do you think about this? Or hey, comment below your favorite X, Y, and Z. You're asking them to comment, you're asking them to participate with you, and it being again a social interaction. And so I think those two are some really really easy and kind of easy to implement practical ideas, um, because again that will help to increase the engagement, which will help you not to feel so discouraged when you are thinking through you know how to make sure people see your stuff, right? um, I want to and again, please, as I said before, please throw in your questions or your comments, and I will do my best to see if I can see them here. There we go. Let me open up my chat and I can make sure I see them. Okay, perfect. So What I want to do next is just kind of walk you through kind of three simple steps that you can take, whether because I can't assume that all of you guys are already doing this. Some of you may have not even touched social media yet. Maybe some of you haven't decided whether you even want to go there. So I want to also provide just some practical tips and steps for kind of getting started, or maybe what you should rethink as you've been trying to implement a social media strategy. So the first one, it would be to determine your target audience and your platform. So what I want you to ask yourself basically is, who are you trying to reach and where are they gathering? And I think that all of you, depending on your context, depending on your ministries and the people that you are, working with, all of you are probably would probably have a different answer to that question. And so again, who are you trying to reach? Is it parents? Is it volunteers? How old are they? What is the average demographic of the people group that you are trying to reach? And then ask yourself, where is that people group gathering, right? So a really practical example would be, if I'm a kids pastor and I have a small group ministry of primarily teenagers, right? I have invested in my students at my church, and I've got a group of like 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old small group leaders who are amazing, and they are solid, and they love Jesus, and they are working with my first graders and my second graders, my younger elementary kiddos, and I want to reach them. Well, most of my teenagers are not on Facebook. They're on Instagram. And so I, as a leader, have to figure out, how do I engage my student leaders on Instagram? How do I train them? How do I provide practical information, or practical tips for leading small groups well? Again, I've thought about my audience and I've thought about where that audience is gathering. So that would be my first question for all of you, is just to really think about um, that you're, especially the demographic and where you think that they might be. And the thing is most people are in multiple places. It would be ideal for you to be in multiple places, but I would always recommend, especially if you're just getting started, to start small and to just tackle one platform at a time, especially if you're newer, if you're still trying to figure out how this is going to work in your work schedule. You don't want to overwhelm yourself too soon, too quickly. And so definitely think through, what's the first platform you should start with, depending on your audience and where you think they are gathering. Okay. Um, a good rule of thumb, especially if you're working with primarily adults, would be to start with Facebook, because, as we know, it is the most popular social media app still, in the US. So, um, one tip about Facebook, before I go to my next step, is there is a difference between a Facebook page and a Facebook group. Okay. The way that you should think about these two um, sort of accounts, or pages, would be a visitor and a member of your church. So your Facebook page, we would see that as the front door to your church. And so it is public, and anybody outside of your church could go to your Facebook page and see what your church is all about, or see what your ministry is all about. So um, there might be, you know, information about events happening on your Facebook page. There might be, um, your service information, but just generally information that a visitor would want to know if they didn't already go to your church. So that's a Facebook page, and maybe everyone here already has one, which is great. I think everybody should have one. It's really good for, um, just as as a foyer kind of environment, as if you want to think of a house. Um, but when you have a Facebook group is a group that you would create that would have much more of a community type feel to it. So if you are wanting to provide encouragement, or like specific encouragement or training to a specific group of people, like volunteers or parents, if you want to ask for prayer requests, if you want to post photos of the children within or on this group, you can do that because a group is closed and it has much more of a private and community type of feel to it. And so that is a really important distinction just to be aware of when you're using Facebook, is whether what you're trying to accomplish should happen on a page or within a group. So again, a page is public and a group is private. That where folks would have to ask some questions in order to be accepted into the group. And I would highly recommend, when it comes to like a specific age group of parents or with a specific age group of volunteers, to use a group, because that will well, the primary reason would be the primary reason would be that Facebook has started to prioritize um, groups. They have started to prioritize community, which means that the more engagement that happens within a Facebook group would be um, more likely to be seen on your friends' feeds. Basically, they've prioritized groups, information, and community. So groups are definitely, I think, when it comes to ministry purposes, one of the most important things that you can do. I think I saw a question here, so I'm going to take a look at that really quick. Okay, so Zane asked, is it better to be posting videos or images? Depending on the target audience, are images and photos declining in engagement? I would say so, yes. Right now, I think that videos have the highest engagement rate across platforms. So the more that you can post videos, the better. I would not say that photos are just obsolete. Photos are still much better than just plain text. So if you have a graphic or a photo, I think we're a very highly visual society for the most part. So photos are definitely going to have more engagement than just a block of text. So I would say video, photo, text. I would say honestly to never post anything without a graphic or a photo as well. That's just something really quick and practical there. But like I said, just again, between Facebook groups and pages, pages are public, groups are private. Groups are a really, really fantastic way to build community, especially if you're leading volunteers or if you're trying to provide some really deeper level of connection for parents. That's where groups would come in. Okay. I am just a quick little note, guys. I am at the library right now and they want me to wear a mask. And so I'm going to put a mask on. If you guys can't hear me or if you have trouble understanding me, will you please let me know? Sorry about that. Okay, so hopefully you guys can still hear me. So the first step was, thank you, Jackie. So the first step was, again, to determine your target audience and your platform, and you're asking yourself, who are you trying to reach and where are they gathering? The second step would be creating a daily posting social media strategy. So this is sort of the practical chart that I mentioned earlier that I will send to you or Jackie will send to you, but it's basically determining what exactly am I going to post and when. Okay, so it's really important to have a strategy for what type of content you want to post and when you're going to create it. Now, as I mentioned before, Orange does a fantastic job of providing you pretty much most of the content that you would need. So the what am I going to post is pretty much taken care of for you. We also tell you what day to post content as well. So we also kind of take care of the when. I would say though, for you specifically as a ministry leader, you want your content to be more personal, and to provide more information, maybe specifically about you or your ministry or the kids in your ministry. So apart from curriculum specific information, which is what we provide you with all of the curriculum specific type content. So bottom line images, memory verse, here's a link to the Bible story video. All that stuff is fantastic. But we also want you to think about events that might be happening at your church. So maybe posting links to registrations to camps or events, or just anything special, any kind of campaigns or things like that, anything that would create a community type of feel for your organization. We also think that that especially within something like a Facebook group, photos and videos, as I said before, are of your people are going to get much higher engagement rates than not. And so a really, really practical tip that I used to love to do when I was in ministry was, having somebody take a few shots, a few photos of our kids on a Sunday morning. And maybe it's when they're praying together, or maybe it's when the kids are worshiping, and just posting a photo or a video of that clip within the Facebook group or the Instagram or whatever. Um, if you're a parent, I don't know if any of you guys are parents. I'm a parent of two kiddos. When anyone else posts photos or videos of my kids, especially at church, like, I'm gonna like that, I'm gonna comment, I'm gonna share it with grandma. Um, and so a really great strategy would be to start to learn how to personalize your social media accounts and pages as much as possible, and then tag the people who are posted. Maybe tag the parents of the child that you posted. um, and so again, that's just a really, really easy way to increase engagement, and to help people feel like they are part of something special. Because that is really what, again, what the beauty of social media and what it can do for folks is make them feel more connected to one another. So don't be afraid to post photos or videos of your kiddos. Again, just a caveat: only within the context of a group that is private, so that those photos are, you know, don't end up in the wrong hands. And I would also recommend for you all to get permission from parents before you proceed with that. Usually, a church will provide some kind of a social media, or just a media in general, form that parents would sign to allow, that would say that we are allowed, or that you are allowed to post photos or images of them on our social media accounts. Really, really important to get permission before you do that, because you never know. There could be different families with different situations, especially in regards to things like custody or foster care, and you want to be sensitive to those situations. And so, um, but really, really trying to personalize your social media as much as possible, I think will create higher rates of engagement, because these are your people, and you want to encourage them to engage with the personal content, like I said, like tagging or commenting, um, below the photo, the family of the folks that you're posting. So I guess maybe the last idea or thought is that you want to give your families, or your audience, kind of a level, what I call an element of unpredictable predictability. And so what I mean by that is predictable in the sense that you have a strategy for the type of content that you post every single day. So that, like, say, Mondays, we're gonna always start off the week with a quote or an inspiring verse, and Tuesdays we're gonna always post a blog or a resource for a parent, and things like that. Knowing what you're gonna post when, but then also kind of changing it up every now and then, and having your own version of this plan where you're posting personal information, like your events and your pictures and things like that. So, as I mentioned, we will share a chart with you. It's basically a sample social media framework that you can use for your parents and your volunteers. And it's just a sample. You can tweak it and edit it however you want, but we've given you an idea for a type of, think of it like content buckets, what type of content can you post every single day for both your volunteers and your parents. um, and we've given you like a 7-day chart to be able to do that. So I would incorporate that with the social media plan that we've already given you. Okay, I'm going to pause for just a second before I get to the final step here, just to make sure that I'm tracking with everybody and making sure nobody has questions. Okay, perfect. So the last thing that I would share, and I've kind of already mentioned this a little bit, but the third step would be to build that support team. Ask yourself who can help. Um, do not try to shoulder all of your social media on your own. I know that we like to do that as kids pastors. We already have a lot on our plate, and you should not have to, become a absolute social media guru unless you already are. But if you're not, find the people who are. There are so many people in your ministries who I think would love to help you with this. Social media, it's just fun for some people. And so I know that there is a tech savvy stay at home dad, or a responsible high school student or college student who is home, or anyone that you see maybe in your own personal social media, that you say that you could think of like they've got a knack for this. I would tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, I want to start a social media team. I want to build an engagement team to help me think through, what to post, when to post it, but then also to help engage with the content that we're putting out. Um, I would give this team access to obviously you have to trust them, but give them access to, these accounts to be able to post as the account. Maybe giving them like administrative um, privileges so they can do that. Yes, it is a really great way to get teams involved. But definitely give them access to your social media and your scheduling tools, and let them give them the social media plan that we give you, and let them run with it. And let them spend a couple hours a week pushing out all of this content for you. I think one of the best things that you can do is, if you have someone else or a group of people publishing all of your content, then all you have to do is be responsible for engaging with that content, asking questions, posting comments, posting, funny gifs, or, reacting to whatever content that you are creating. Because again, all of um, that back and forth, and that engagement is going to increase the probability of people joining in the fun with you as well. Um, so again, finding those folks, creating a street team to help drive engagement. The other thing I didn't touch on that I think is also really important is to find the right uh, publishing or scheduling tools. So if you may already know, there are tons of tools available that are free that would allow you to publish or schedule your social media as far in advance as you would like. And so a few of the kind of most popular ones are called Buffer, Buffer, Buffer. There's also Hootsuite. There's a new one. What's the newest one that I just used the other day? I'll have to find it. Oh, it's like maybe it's Publify. I can't remember, but I would say starting with Buffer or Hootsuite, or Facebook has its own tool as well that's free, and it's called Content. No, sorry, it's called Creator Studio. So I would look into either of those three: Buffer, Hootsuite, or Creator Studio. And because we give you the social media plans, um, you can sit down, or someone else can sit down and schedule out all of that content in advance. And, because we give you your curriculum 2 months in advance, you could technically schedule out all of your social media 2 months in advance if you had the help. It's definitely possible. And like I said, the best thing, um, the best scenario would be to have somebody else scheduling out all of that content, and then you are just checking in and you're engaging with it. You're making sure that they're posting at the right time, the right days, making sure that there's no, maybe errors or things, typos, things like that. But you can kind of take more of a um, sort of a supervisory role with it as opposed to posting and scheduling all the content yourself. Okay. So yeah, so those are sort of my three kind of practical steps. I'll run through them one more time. The first one would be to determine your target audience and platform, figure out who your people are and where they are gathering online. The next would be to create that daily posting strategy. And the next one would be to build a support team. Um, we all know that you wear many, many hats. And so we really believe that it's important to, sorry about that. We believe it's really important for you to get as much help with this as possible. And all of you have a very unique message, a very unique context that you're coming from, and so it is important to inject that uniqueness and the way that God has sort of designed the sort of the DNA of your particular ministry. It's so important for that to show up in your social media, um, in your voice that you're putting out there. And so yeah, I think that's kind of the gist of my help. I would love to answer any other maybe practical questions that anybody else might have. But I really, really hope that this was helpful. And as I mentioned, we will be sure to pass along um, that particular strategy posting calendar that we made for y'all.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, we're just going to jump right into question and answer. So Daniel, we're excited to hear some of your answers to some of these questions. So first, our first question is, when it comes to posting, should there be a focus on more of Instagram or Facebook stories or feed posts? They acknowledge that we should do both, but is there one that is more important or viable for reaching audiences?
Sure, I would definitely say that both are important, but I would definitely say that the content, it depends on what content that you're posting. And so here's a really practical example: is feed posts. I would say are posts that you want to have a longer shelf life. Obviously, it's maybe things about events that are happening that you want to make sure everybody sees, or quotes that you want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to sort of be encouraged by, or scripture. Um, your stories, however, and I'm speaking about, well, I guess Facebook has stories now too, but your stories, however, are things that you don't mind having a content that you don't mind having a not as long of a shelf life, right? So it could be just kind of check-ins. It could be behind the scenes of certain events that are happening. One thing that I used to do was the Saturday night um, before church on Sunday, I would jump on my Instagram stories, on the account where all of my teenage small group leaders were, that I was talking about earlier, and I would just encourage them, and I would do just like a quick little like huddle, like, hey guys, like here's what we're going to be talking about tomorrow morning. Like, don't forget to like look at your small group guide and look at your lesson. Most of them, I don't know if any of you guys do huddles, at your church on Sunday morning to like get your volunteers ready to go. But most of my teenagers were not coming to my huddles, and they did not care that I was providing the best donuts. So what I did was, again, I met them where they were, right? This is what Jesus does for us, right? He meets us where we are. And so I said, you know what, Saturday night, I'm going to jump on my Insta story and I'm going to talk to them then. And I could see in that little like Instagram thing, like you can see who's watching it. And I could see when they were watching, and some of them would engage, some of them would ask questions like, oh my gosh, like where's the email? You know, and I met them where they were. And it was a great way for me to get the information to them. So anyway, all that to say, just kind of depending on the content that you're pushing out, think about the longevity of and the importance of that content, and that'll determine whether it should be a story or a feed post.
Katie, I'm going to jump in. as always. So last year, your guys' youth leader conference week, I got to do your social media takeover for the week. I can't remember if you asked me, if I just decided to do it, details. But I would ask, like, how are you guys using your social media? And it was like a million different things you were doing. And I was like, cool, I'm just going to focus on everyone having a good time. So your assistant TYS would always ask like the special guests what animal they were. So at mealtime, I went around recording people saying what animal they were, posted that to stories, would always say, if you guys didn't come to this event, look what you're missing out on. For every meal, we had either cheesecake or baked potato. So I would do like the little polls on which one was better. So it's funny inside jokes for events to get people excited, but also to get them realizing to always go to your page. Like these fun little polls, the silly little questions, they don't have a deep spiritual focus, understandable, but it was getting them like almost training their mind to, oh, I should watch, Central Youth Network's Insta stories. They're funny, they have stuff so that you can slide in other things. And they're so used to like going and watching your stories that now they're going for bigger and farther reasons too.
Right. Very true. Thank you. Our next question is, because this is the thing right now. Do you have any tips for utilizing TikTok? Can it be a functional tool for ministry? I would love to hear what you think.
That's a great question. I will say that I do see ministries on TikTok as of late. Um, TikTok is an interesting platform because I think it's more about getting a specific message just sort of out to the public. So maybe you're like, a youth pastor and you just want to share like tips about youth ministry or something like that, or your experience in youth ministry, that, you're going to a really wide audience and you're putting your content out there. That is to me, like that is the point of TikTok, is to sort of share a message with a broad audience. So maybe you go on TikTok live and you do Bible studies just to encourage whoever is going to come on or whatever. What I don't see is very many ministries using TikTok to encourage and create community among the people that are a part of their ministries. And that's kind of what we've been talking about, is kind of engaging the people who are with us, right? Our parents or our volunteers, how to train them well, how to inspire them, how to encourage them. I don't see TikTok as sort of the primary platform to do that type of posting, or to create that type of content. So, so yeah, I mean, I think those are my kind of my quick thoughts. If you were wanting to just kind of reach an audience outside of your ministries, then that's kind of what TikTok would do. So if you had your own, ministry, or your own speaking kind of, ministry or something like that, that's what you would use TikTok for.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. Our next question is asking, if you're aiming towards teens, preteens, and even young adults, is it wise to put a lot of focus into Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok? What should be the focused avenue of social media for that age range?
Yeah, for that age range right now, I would say Instagram is still going to be probably give you your biggest bang for the time that you're putting into it. Um, YouTube is also, I mean, YouTube is the number one social media platform in the world still. It's then Facebook is a kind of a close second. Um, Again, it depends on the type of content that you're creating, but if you were wanting to provide some type of ongoing video driven content, for your audience, whatever that might be, it might be like a weekly check-in with, so and so, and they're giving an update on the week, or just general encouragement, and you wanted that to be sort of like a video type of platform, then YouTube would be the number one and the best place to do that. Um, but if not, if you're just wanting to provide just kind of ongoing encouragement and kind of connection for what's specifically going on in your ministry, I would probably say that Instagram is probably still your number one for that demographic, the best place. I would not say that Twitter is necessarily Twitter. In my opinion, is kind of more so, or at least right now, I think it's getting a little bit more corporate, and it's a little bit more like for like bite-sized news information for people like kind of in the professional world. It kind of reminds me of LinkedIn a little bit in that way. But I mean, obviously, there are a lot of parents who might be very active on Twitter because of the type of job that they have or the kind of the world that they live in every day. So it could be a great way to connect with them. But I could see parents sort of, and I could be wrong. This is just sort of my hunch that I could see most of your parents who are active on Twitter, they're not necessarily looking for information about your church or how to connect or how to be a better parent or whatever through their Twitter accounts or their Twitter feeds. They're gonna find or expect to find most of that on a Facebook or Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you. Another question about groups on Facebook. Should you have multiple groups for things like youth group, Sunday school, etc., or just have one private group for all youth programming?
You know, that really is a question for your bandwidth and your, ability to be able to keep up with multiple accounts. And so, like what I was saying earlier, is kind of starting small and starting with one and making sure that you have the team and the time to invest in it well so that it's a great experience for everyone. um, Ultimately, I think if you have the people behind you, the team behind you, and the content is there and the people are ready to help you with engagement, then yes, I would have multiple groups, because I think the more specific that you can get with a specific group or with a group of volunteers or group of parents, the more laser focused that you can get with those people, the better, right? Because they're going to see that much more value in whatever it is that you're posting, because it is within their niche. It is within, the area that they're focused on. Whether it be with like preschoolers, or like sometimes churches ask me like, should I have a Facebook group for my preschoolers and my elementary kids and my middle schoolers? And I say, yes, like if you can, yes, have a specialized group for Facebook for preschool parents, have another one for elementary parents, because you can post very specific content within each of those. But again, I would not do that if you didn't have the resources and the team support behind you. So if not, then just start with one. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much. Yeah, so Cheryl McDonald was just saying in the chat that they have one for each of their age groups. So that's great. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, if you can do it, go for it.
Yeah, right. I have a question for Jackie. So to put you on the spot, Jackie, we were just chatting a little bit before the webinar. I said, Jackie, like you're the Facebook queen. I look at you managing our Orange, Thinking Orange in the Salvation Army group. And she's like, no way, like I'm terrible with technology. But Jackie, for somebody who considers themselves not very tech savvy, what is your biggest tip to someone who might not be tech savvy to excel in the social media realm?
I mean, I really love what Daniel said, is mostly what do you want from it? So I'm kind of lucky. There's a lot of other Orange pages that are like very like have to have things run through people and everything. I kind of get to do whatever I want. Don't tell Orange. But it's really, what do I want from the page? And so I decided pretty much this was going to be my place to encourage and to resource and to provide another avenue of direct access. So that's what I see it as. So I'm always posting in there. Orange posts a blog that I like, I'm going to repost it in there. If Orange Leaders just came out with a new free resource, because I'm all about the free, I'm immediately going like, y'all, free stuff, sign up for that, because I'm cheap and I like free stuff. So that's kind of how I see that group as. And so that's how I kind of want to grow it organically. Has it gotten to that point? Let's be honest, no, it hasn't. Like I don't get a ton of engagement in that group. And that's because TSA people, you have a million things going on. Like I know not everyone is going to that group every day to be like, what's Jackie posting today? That's not that kind of group. Because I don't have like a group of 20, 30, 40 ministry kids that I'm really feeding into. It's a group of 2,200 people. So it's kind of like gauging what is engagement to me. What does that look like? And so I really use it as a way of what would I want? Like what orange resources do I want? What would I want out of a Facebook group that I occasionally remember that I'm in? And that's kind of what I treat it as. If I was more consistent with posting, maybe it would be a different kind of group. If I was posting different things, maybe it would be a different kind of group. But that's the great thing about social media is it's fluid. I can figure out what I want from the group and I can change that at a moment's notice. If something's not working, I can change it. Also, if something is going down an avenue that I don't think is helpful for people, it's a quick way for me to kind of cut that off and kind of make it work for me a little bit better. But just know for some, like what I hate about Facebook is I'm not always notified when someone posts in that group because it's under the orange specialist, not under my personal page, because I don't know if y'all would be interested in my personal Facebook page. It's not great. It's kind of boring. So I'm under the orange specialist banner. So I'm not always notified when someone posts. So I am checking that group every 20 minutes. When I'm on vacation and I shouldn't be checking that group, I'm checking that group. That's not a good thing. Don't be me, guys. Like, have boundaries with social media, but just know you're going to miss stuff. Someone's going to post something and you're going to miss it. Someone's going to ask for something and you're not going to get to it right away. That's not a failure on you in social media. That doesn't mean your Facebook group isn't working. It just means you're human. You're one person. I'm running a page of 2,200 people. It's not always going to work out great. So if you're running 5 different ministry groups and you miss a post on a day somewhere, don't beat yourself up because you're one person. Maybe that shows we need to condense our Facebook groups for a while. We thought about having a million different Facebook groups, and I literally said, I don't have the bandwidth. I can't do just in TSA XP3, a TSA First Look, and a TSA 252, a TSA Labs group. That would not be helpful to anyone. So I've just kind of made the decision, and you have to make the decision for you. Like take Daniel's best practices and say, I love 98% of what he said. 2% makes me want to cry. Leave the 2%. Just like what we say with orange, like figure out what works for you. If your teenagers aren't on Instagram like we think they are, go where they are. If they're on TikTok, go to TikTok. If they're, I don't know, I don't do social media. So like I do Instagram and I think I'm really cool with that. I watch TikTok, but I will never do a TikTok because I'm not cool. That's not my area. I know it's hard to believe, but like go where your teens are. And the thing is, you're never going to be on the right app because as soon as we're on the right app, they develop a new app and that's where all the teens go. As soon as the adults go there, the teens go to a different one. Like, so just know we're always going to be like a space behind because the teens don't want us to see their stuff. So I think it's not about chasing like where they're at right now. It's where we can engage with them because they're always going to be moving on to the next thing. And I just rambled on about 20 different social media things, but that's my piece.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Jackie. I appreciate that perspective. We have time for one more question. So Daniel, we would like to ask this question to you. So what is the best method of communication method for youth in regards to group messaging? Group text, Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp? They're saying that sometimes notifications get annoying when it comes to group messaging. So what's the best approach?
I would say one of the most popular texting apps is called Remind, R-E-M-I-N-D. And so Remind tends to be one that you could like create groups, like specific groups of people to send, texts to. And I find that a lot of ministry leaders think that it's a good tool for working with their volunteers. So I would say Remind is the first one. And then another one, I would maybe try the Lead Small app, which is an app that we have created at Orange to communicate with your volunteers. Lead Small app allows you to send custom push notifications to your volunteers. And so you can schedule those, you can send them whenever you want. But within the app itself, they also get their curriculum, and they also get their information about their kiddos, like their favorite, things and their birthdays and things like that. So it's a great place for a volunteer to get all their information about church and what they do at your church in one place. So if you have questions about the Lead Small app, I'm, again, as a product specialist, I do all the training for Lead Small app and Lead Small app customization. So if you have any questions on that, I'm happy to help. Same thing on the parent side is ParentQ app and ParentQ app customization. And within that, you're able to send custom push notifications to your parents. And the great thing about push notifications is that they're not a text and they're not an email, but instead they're a little bubble that pops up on the lock screen of your, someone's device. So I think it's kind of a different sort of way of communicating with someone, and there might be a higher chance of them getting your message. As long as they have notifications turned on, that's very important. But as long as you communicate that well and you try that out, that might be a nice way to get information from you that's not getting lost within their texts or within their emails. So that would be ParentQ app and Lead Small app customization.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Daniel. We really appreciate you taking the time to share your wisdom and your expertise with us. We learned a lot today, so I hope that this webinar has been helpful to our attendees and you can use social media to enhance your ministries. Thank you again, Daniel. Thank you so much, Jackie. We really appreciate both of you. Thank you all for tuning in today for our monthly Spotlight webinar. Our next webinar will be Wednesday, April 13th at 12 p.m. Registration information will be sent later this week. May God bless you as you continue to serve and build his kingdom. We're praying for you. Have a great day.